All right. Good evening, everybody. We are post Labor Day. That means Jasmine Pryce Lords cannot wear white anymore until next spring.
Oh no!
You know which makeup I wear? I don't wear white anyway.
Right.
Wait, does that rule really apply to South Florida?
It does not apply, but other parts of the country, it does at Fire Island. I saw it very.
Ooh, yes, I love Fire Island, honey.
Too. So Gregg's with us. Gregg Shapiro's with us too.
Yes.
Kishi.
The one and only.
It's going to be fun. We're getting ready to start fall.
Woo!
And lots of news. Well, welcome to Queer News Tonight, the world's first and only LGBTQ plus daily evening news. It's time to queer up the news. It's 8 p.m. Tuesday, September 7th, 2021, and we are literally out of the closet and into the headlines. So many of your important stories we're going to tell this evening on Queer News Tonight.
This is the world's first live daily LGBTQ evening news show, literally out of the closet and into the headlines on Queer News Tonight with Al Ferguson.
Thank you for joining Queer News Tonight. This is the world's first and only unedited live LGBTQ plus evening news show. Whatever happens, you will see it. Queer News Tonight is supported by viewers like you. We are part of the Happening Out television network, Hotspots magazine, and WMEG events. Hotspots is celebrating 35 years of the LGBTQ plus experience. Merged, we bring you the best of LGBTQ plus news, entertainment, and support of our community.
I'm Al Ferguson, and this evening we bring you the news of and a perspective representing the LGBTQ plus community from South Florida, America, and across our planet. I'm your anchor here at Queer News Tonight, and let's first up welcome anchor Jasmine Pryce Lords. This drag queen is known as the plus-size Barbie. I love that, by the way. And the bearded beauty. She is the new Florida mother of the iconic House of Lords. You can catch her at many of the most popular venues in South Florida, including the newest, the host at Georgie's Alibi on Saturday nights at 8 p.m. Welcome, Jasmine.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here, everyone. And you can also catch me at Hamburger Mary's on Thursdays. We have an open stage open to the entire community. If you're a dancer, singer, tell a poem, tell a joke, whatever you want, it's a spot for you to come and win $100. So come see me there. Also, let's welcome anchor Gregg Shapiro. A renowned LGBTQ plus writer, Gregg is the author of 7 books, including the 2021 expanded edition of his short story collection, How to Whistle. An entertainment journalist, Shapiro's celebrity interviews and reviews run in a variety of regional LGBTQ plus and mainstream publications and websites, and his screensaver movie reviews can be found in South Florida Gay News, San Francisco's Bay Area Reporter, and RottenTomatoes.com, and more. Good evening, Gregg.
Good evening, y'all. Let's welcome Kishi Chad. He serves as a board member at Unity Coalition, the first and only organization for the South Florida Latinx, Hispanic, and Indigenous LGBTQ plus community advancing equality. Welcome, Kishi.
Hi, good evening, everyone. As many of you know, I'm booked and busy. September is no different. You can catch me at Pride in Miami Beach, which is the 18th and the 19th of September, the Men's Wellness Conference, which is the 24th and 25th, and then Orgullo Festival, Unity Coalition, we're coming for you in October. We are the reporters for Queer News Tonight, and this evening we begin with the queer headlines. The LGBTQ plus community in South Florida and across America is diverse. Our community across the world is vast, and here are the bullet points of the queer news for today, Tuesday, September 7th.
Well, let's begin by queering up breaking news. Alphonso David fired by the Human Rights Campaign after Cuomo firestorm. Our partners at The Advocate are reporting that the Human Rights Campaign has fired Alphonso David, who had been the organization's president since 2019 and was being widely criticized for helping former New York Governor Andrew Cuomo respond to sexual harassment accusations. David released a statement Sunday night saying he had been asked to resign even though an investigation of the Cuomo matter found no wrongdoing on his part. The chairs disputed this in an email leaked to the media on Monday morning, and David responded with another statement defending his position. He has now responded to his firing by saying, quote, "Expect legal challenge," end quote. Cox and Patterson said his Sunday night statement contained, quote, "significant untruths," end quote, and that the Sidley Austin investigation found that his work for Cuomo's violated HRC's policy on conflict of interest. Sources told the New York Times the decision to fire David was unanimous, except for 2 abstentions from members of the foundation board. Big news.
Expect a legal challenge. In other words, he's not going quietly at all.
No.
Doesn't look like it.
Yeah. I just think when situations like that occur, especially with an organization as prestigious as HRC, it is disappointing only because of the public opinion or how they react towards each other in public. Like, I hope that there is some resolution because I love HRC and I don't want to see anyone in that organization fall or be penalized.
Right.
Well, we've reported this story following Alphonso closely in weeks. When the news first broke about the reporting of his association with Governor Cuomo, I said, you know, sometimes when you see smoke, there is fire. But I made the comment very specifically in our portion, just like this one, that I hope we gave him due process. After all, he is the most important LGBTQ advocacy voice really in the entire world as president of the HRC. However, now I can say we gave this due process, and this investigation in terms of the result has concluded what they have concluded in terms of violation of policy for the HRC. So due process has now been completed, and the HRC has made a decision on him. The one very disappointing moment in the news that we're watching here is exactly what Gregg brings to our attention. Expect legal action.
Right, and then you think maybe he should take a page from the Cuomo handbook and sort of quietly depart, clean out his desk and quietly depart.
Apparently that is not going to happen. Apparently that is not going to happen.
Okay, next, let's queer up religion. Catholic schools can't fire teachers for being gay, federal court rules. LGBTQ plus Nation is reporting that a federal court has ruled that a North Carolina Catholic school wrongfully fired a teacher in 2014 just because he was gay. Last Friday, U.S. District Judge Max Cockburn ruled that the Charlotte Catholic High School and the Roman Catholic Archdiocese of Charlotte, North Carolina, wrongfully fired gay substitute drama and English teacher Lonnie Billard in 2014. Cockburn ruled that the school violated federal protections against sex discrimination under the Title VII of the Civil Rights Act. The judge wrote that the school's actions weren't protected by constitutional rights to religious freedom. He also ruled that, quote, the school's action didn't fit into exemptions to labor law that give religious institutions leeway to require certain employees to adhere to religious teachings, end quote. In 2014, the school fired Billard after he announced his wedding to a man on Facebook. He posted about his upcoming wedding in October 2014 and was informed by an assistant principal several weeks later that he no longer had a job with the school.
Wait, are there actually straight substitute drama teachers?
There's a few.
I haven't met any, but...
Like, come on. This is very disappointing. I do not think that sexual orientation by any means should be a subject or a part of anything that is relevant towards someone's firing. Like, you can be the best, the most skilled teacher, substitute teacher, whatever. That is what you should stand on. Is your merit, is your quality of employment.
Right.
This is,
I know.
This is very complicated. Let's try to unpack what this federal judge has done, because it is very complicated.
Right.
This is going to be appealed to the Supreme Court, and it's going to be very interesting to see what the Supreme Court is going to do. Our first reaction is the Supreme Court is not going to sustain this federal judge. The Supreme Court is likely going to support the Catholic school and saying their religious decision-making supersedes any other issue, and therefore they're allowed to fire the employee. However, the Supreme Court has made everything in flux here because they decided last year, while President Trump was president, that Title VII applied in the 1960s equality constitutional decisions. So it opened the door to have protection because of Title VII. And now we're in a situation where this is going to go back to the Supreme Court, and they're going to be forced to redefine what your intent was of Title VII and how religious freedom balances against civil human rights and the Title VII freedom. That's what we don't know. This, for sure, however, is going to be appealed to the Supreme Court, and above everything else, it's why elections matter. The Supreme Court is hanging in the balance of this single decision of whether you can be fired just because you're gay.
Right.
So,
Next, let's queer up the world. Tens of thousands protest for gay marriage in Switzerland. Tens of thousands protested in Switzerland on Saturday for the legalization of same-sex marriage in the Alpine country, the Associated Press reports. The protests came ahead of a national referendum on September 26th on the legalization of gay marriage, which has already been introduced in many other European countries, including Germany, Austria, France, and the Netherlands. So far, same-sex couples in Switzerland can only get official approval for civil unions, which are not on equal footing as marriages. If a majority votes for the legalization of same-sex marriage in Switzerland, this would allow couples to adopt children. In addition, lesbian couples would have easier access to sperm donations if they wanted to start a family, and it would be easier for foreign partners to get Swiss citizenship.
I'm surprised. I would have thought Switzerland being so neutral and welcoming as it's popularized, you would already think that the gays could get married, but I don't think it'll be objection from the Swiss government. I think they just need a little kick, and we'll be happy to give you a little rainbow kick.
A little rainbow kick.
Well, and I'm truly counting on Switzerland, because don't make me eat vegan Swiss cheese, okay? Just do your part, Switzerland.
you know, what's interesting about this march that took place over the weekend in Switzerland supporting gay marriage is, as you identified, that Switzerland already doesn't have gay marriage. Everyone around them in the European Union and the Union itself is incredibly pro LGBTQ rights, and they're standing up to places like Hungary, Poland, etc.
Right.
What's really at play here is not, in my opinion, anti-LGBT.
Correct.
What's at play here is money. And what the Swiss do not want is for you to be able to become a citizen of Switzerland. Switzerland is
Swiss banks.
Exactly.
Oh yeah.
Right. It's a money issue, and they don't want to broaden definition of marriage that would allow people to become easier to become citizens of Switzerland, which is interesting because
they love immigrants.
It's not an issue that we normally hear about related to LGBT and marriage rights, but in Switzerland it is quite unique. But the path is moving, and I predict Switzerland is going to adopt marriage.
Oh yeah.
All right, and now we queer up health. Fourth Circuit rules North Carolina can be sued for violating Affordable Care Act over anti-trans state employee health care plan. Q notes Carolinas reports that the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Fourth Circuit upheld a district court ruling September 1st, determining that the North Carolina State Health Plan for Teachers and Employees, a state entity, could be sued under the non-discrimination provision of the Affordable Care Act for denying comprehensive gender-affirming healthcare coverage. Lambda Legal and Transgender Legal Defense and Education Fund filed the case, Cadle versus Fowle, in 2019 against North Carolina officials for discrimination in the state employee health care plan, which covers around 720,000 employees and retirees, and has a categorical exclusion of treatment for gender dysphoria.
What do you think about American Care Act and trans health care?
It's a right? I mean, it's law, right? This is...
It's a very expensive decision because this issue of having the American Affordable Care Act being defensible in terms of medical, which is what North Carolina has lost, is going to be a very expensive proposition.
Well, I'm sure homophobic Senator Tom Tillis must have his panties in a twist right about now.
Yes, exactly.
Well, you better call out names. I love it. I love it.
All right, well, speaking of trans rights with the Affordable Care Act, let's queer up trans rights. Canada's Drag Race star told not to discuss trans identity by its producers. Pink News is reporting that Canada's Drag Race star Ilona Verley has slammed the show's producers, claiming she was told not to discuss her trans identity on the series. The Indigenous Queen appeared on season 1 of the Canadian Drag Race spin-off and came in 6th on this series. Ilona opened up in a searing series of tweets on Friday about their experience on the show and the aftermath of appearing on such a high-profile drag competition. She tweeted, or I should say they tweeted, quote, "I received none of the things promised to me when giving up my life for the franchise and had to deal with being limited in being able to provide for myself as my industry as a nightlife entertainer was shut down due to the pandemic, and I had to represent the morals of a brand," end quote. Shortly after their first series of posts on Twitter, Ilona accused Canada's Drag Race producers of instructing them not to talk about their trans identity on the show.
I think that's really interesting because in a lot of the other spin-offs, we've had a lot of conversation, especially in the most recent Spain. Several of the contestants identified as non-binary, and it's like one of the first conversations that come up. So I think it's really interesting that in Canada, clearly the production team there's definitely a disconnect. And I think something that's left out of what you just read, she was talking about, after being on the show, they spent all this money preparing a package to go and compete with the anticipation of when they come home, they're going to be traveling and getting booked and make that money back. And then the pandemic happened. So all that money that she had invested, that return was now not happening. Wow. And then, so she very openly said that she was considering doing like OnlyFans or doing something to get some kind of income. And she was told she couldn't because she had to be brand appropriate as a Root Girl. So now she wasn't being traveling, she wasn't getting any kind of support, and the only option she felt that she could do wasn't an option. So, yeah.
Do you agree with that decision?
No, I mean, I think do what you need to do. Like, we have to survive, I'm sorry. Like, at the end of the day. But I mean, she was also contractually obligated, so I understand her fear of repercussion. But I think it's totally unfair.
And I want to ask you from your perspective, they made a commitment in terms of coming onto the show, and this is the signed agreement and commitment. I have a lot of experience with RuPaul's Drag Race and Queens. They couldn't project the pandemic any better than the Queens or anyone else. So do you think it's reasonable that they enforce any kind of provisions that they enforced in the contract because that was the storyline that they wanted to tell? Do you agree with that?
No, I think she should have been free to do what she needed to do. I'm sorry.
Extenuating circumstances.
Yeah, and as a fan of the show, it's just disappointing that a show that relies heavily on backstory and emotion, they would sort of coerce a contestant to be inauthentic because someone's gender identity, gender expression is very essential and vital to who they are. And to avoid that, it's not authentic. We want to root for these contestants, having that backstory is so important because we get invested when we know that someone is non-binary or trans, and it also puts more awareness towards those issues, and it uplifts and it centers that community.
I mean, and that being said, she did very openly, like, she is very proud to be an Indigenous person, and I'm sorry, they also made it clear that that they were two-spirited. That's how they identified.
See?
So maybe they asked her not to, but she did anyway. They did, because I definitely remember that conversation.
And how many contestants have actually spoken out over the years in this way, and have we ever heard from them again?
You know, I think also interesting to the point of Kishi's note about how we're watching in other places it's different, and you mentioned Spain. They're embracing the trans community. You know, when I started in association with RuPaul's Drag Race, you could not be anything but a biological male, and that was it. And there have been a lot of changes. You know, the most recent announcement in the UK new season is a biological woman as drag queen. So they're embracing it across the board. I think what is fascinating here is why the very strong tone in Canada, because that's really what's going on, which has not been answered yet. I'm sure it's going to be, but we just simply don't know enough yet.
Okay, well, that is our queer headlines for today. So let's catch up on the LGBTQ plus news surrounding COVID-19 with our special segment called Quarantine Quickies.
Queer News Tonight has reported on coronavirus on every news broadcast since January 6, 2020. Tonight we report that as of today, more than 2,861,000 LGBTQ plus Americans have contracted COVID-19.
Queer News Tonight remembers the more than 46,000 LGBTQ plus Americans that have died from coronavirus.
But the news is improving because as of today, more than 374 million vaccination doses have been administered in the U.S.
That is our pandemic news for tonight. Next, we report on our partnership with Sunshine Cathedral, the world's largest queer church here in Fort Lauderdale. We are broadcasting from our permanent set here at Sunshine in supporting that partnership. Happening Out Television Network broadcasts the largest LGBTQ plus religious live broadcast in the world, as more than 30,000 watch every Sunday at 10:30 a.m. Eastern. Watch this.
My name is Mark Ketchum. I am the past executive director of SunServe. Sunshine Cathedral is my queer church. Thank you.
Next up, welcome to Queer News Tonight's Q&A on LGBTQ plus health and pandemic. Since February 2020, this segment has been unique in America, answering your LGBTQ plus community questions about our unique health needs. We are proud to have Queer News Tonight health anchor Dr. Howard Grossman.
He is an American pioneer in HIV/AIDS medical treatment and was the executive director of the American Academy of HIV Medicine. He is a nationally recognized medical expert and proud member of our LGBTQ plus community.
Well, good evening, Dr. Grossman. And before we move into the viewer questions that we have tonight, I want to ask you about your thoughts over what you've seen in this week's health news for our community.
Well, thanks, Al. I would I'd point out that
production could raise our volume a little.
Can you hear me?
Yes, can. Go ahead.
Okay. So this morning's New York Times had a very important article I think everybody should try to read regarding the real risk of the Delta variant for vaccinated people. I think we've talked for some time about the fact that the media has created tremendous hysteria when in fact we're talking about relatively small numbers of people. And several studies that they quoted found a risk of about 1 in 5,000 cases for somebody to get reinfected in places where levels were very low, and in places where vaccine levels are higher, 1 in 10,000 or even less. And so, we've talked about the fact that hospitalizations are rare for people who have been vaccinated, but this was even more reassuring. So that was the New York Times this morning.
Howard, I want to ask you, that's interesting news, and I'm going to read that. I haven't read that yet. Thanks for bringing that to our attention. I want to ask you quickly, I know it's kind of breaking, but any thoughts yet on this new Mu variant?
Oh, we're up to Mu, are we?
Yeah.
I haven't heard about it.
Yeah, it's just breaking.
Yeah, as long as people don't get vaccinated, the virus will continue to mutate as viruses do. If it can be shut down and stop spreading, it's going to stop mutating.
Yeah. Well, we've got we have some questions for you tonight. So let's jump right into tonight's questions.
A doctor in Tampa is refusing to treat unvaccinated patients in person. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, I think every person needs to think about his or her own risk or their own risk and act accordingly. And if for whatever reason this doctor feels at increased risk, I think that's legitimate. On the other hand, many healthcare providers are angry about people who aren't vaccinated. And it's really not a matter of risk, but it's a matter of anger. And, I learned a long time ago that you can't get angry at people for being stupid, and you can't get angry at people for taking health risks in a medical setting. So, we treat smokers when they get cancer, and we don't get angry at them. There was a period in the early days of HIV when we really didn't have treatment, but we first had PCP prophylaxis, prevention of pneumocystis pneumonia. And there were doctors who said, I won't take care of anybody who doesn't do PCP prophylaxis, because they were so burned out on people dying. And here was finally a tool to keep people alive, that was their reaction. And I just don't think that's the way to do it.
Howard, I want to ask you on that, and other people have asked me about our segment that I do with you, and I want to zero right in just very briefly on that point. Are you seeing similarities, because I didn't see it in this perspective in the 90s, are you seeing from your early days of dealing with AIDS and HIV, are you seeing similar tracks of the way healthcare professionals are responding and the community is responding to AIDS, HIV in those days and the unvaccinated today? Do you see a common track?
Forget about those days and these days, Al. I just had a patient the other day whose primary care doctor wouldn't prescribe PrEP, so he came to me to get it. And then when he called the doctor and said, I need a referral to see this person who's a specialist so that he can get paid, the guy basically kicked him out of his practice. He said, I told you that I don't believe in it, and I don't believe that it works, and so if you take it, I don't want you to be my patient.
Okay, bye.
Okay. Yeah, right. That's what the guy said, but the patient said. But that was the attitude of a doctor right now in 2021 here in Florida. So we certainly saw AIDS denialism. We saw people who refused to believe that a virus could do these things. We saw and literally the AIDS denialists in South Africa were responsible for literally millions of deaths. So this kind of thing is not new. What's new is that we have the internet, and the internet has created this feeling that people can be their own scientists. That people can actually say I love the fact that people get onto a machine that can fit in the palm of their hand, that works over wireless things through towers all over the place, and then they say, I don't believe in science.
Dr. Grossman, I want to publicly state that I am copywriting that phrase right now. I'm going to put it on shirts. I am my own scientist.
Yes.
I have Google. I can find out the answer myself.
Yes, exactly. Kishi, let's talk about an international question.
Of course, you got it. A man in Vietnam was sentenced to 5 years in jail for lying on health paperwork and spreading COVID-19 to 8 people, one of whom died. Is this similar to AIDS criminalization?
You know, I think it's very different because clearly this is a person who lied about their status and put other people at risk. And I think that there is consensus that people who, there have been a very rare cases of people with serious mental illness problems who purposely go out and infect people with HIV. That's very different from the HIV criminalization that has made it that even though someone can't pass the virus because they're undetectable, if they don't reveal to everybody around them that they're HIV positive, they somehow could end up in jail for 20 years. That's what HIV criminalization did in the U.S. It has no basis in science. This isn't about people purposely going out and infecting people. It's based on prejudice against people living with HIV. Period.
Mm-hmm.
So, you're sick with a virus that you can infect people with, and you go around infecting them on purpose. That's pretty serious.
Yeah.
Agreed. I have another question. So first responders are dying in higher numbers than the general population, yet are pushing back against vaccine mandates. Why do you think this is happening?
You know, that's one of the big mysteries out of this. I noticed that there were 3 police officers, I believe, who died here in Broward County in the last couple of weeks. There's no mention in the papers of whether they were vaccinated or not, but you can kind of assume that they probably weren't. Why there are all these nurses who won't get vaccinated? I heard a story about a nurse at a local university working in a transplant unit who refused to get vaccinated and infected all the people in the transplant unit, many of whom died.
See?
I don't understand how these people can consider themselves public servants. But you hear it across the country, police officers not getting vaccinated, firemen not getting vaccinated, and then medical personnel. That's the biggest one to me, the mystery. It's this denialism, and it's also, I think, this whole idea that somehow it's a political litmus test whether you get vaccinated or not.
Yeah. It is politics, isn't it? It really does. A year and a half of this, and it comes down to what political party or what you support, unfortunately. Get vaccinated. Period. Get vaccinated. All right, well, that is this evening's Queer News, tonight's Q&A on LGBTQ plus health and the pandemic. We're here every Tuesday with Dr. Howard Grossman. He and I are having an affair, by the way. It's same time next Tuesday, if you know that.
Telefair. It's a telefair.
Yeah, exactly right. It's as intimate as we can make it, considering we. I've got lots of jokes. So we remind you, do you need medical assistance? Of course, we're the LGBTQ community, and we do. So we encourage you to contact Dr. Howard Grossman here in Wilton Manors and all across South Florida. And thank you again, Howard, for being with us and on another date with me on a Tuesday night.
Thank you, Al. I'm glad you brought along the rest of your friends, too.
Yes, exactly. Well, we are going to finish tonight's Queer News headlines with a segment we call LGBTQ plus Flash News.
LGBTQ plus Flash News. The LGBTQ plus legacy of 9/11, September 11, 2001, changed the lives of all Americans. At 8:46 a.m., the first airplane hit the World Trade Center. 15 minutes later, the second tower was hit. There were many heroes in the aftermath, but one gay man stands out as a hero that sacrificed his life to save countless others. As he was flying from Newark to San Francisco on United Flight 93, the plane was hijacked by Al-Qaeda. The plane was suspected of targeting either the White House or the Capitol building. Openly gay rugby player Mark Bingham helped lead a plan and fought to retake the hijacked plane. Bingham and others on the plane were able to communicate with the ground, and the plane was ordered shot down by President George W. Bush. But his heroic actions helped to prevent even greater devastation.
We must never, ever forget Mark Bingham, Father Michael Judge, and all those who died on that day.
I just can't believe it's been 20 years, and I'm grateful for those who did what they could, even risking their life.
On every news broadcast this week, Queer News Tonight, we're going to recognize different stories about the 20th anniversary of 9/11, and we're going to do an extended segment on It's Happening Out Wednesday night, so we hope you tune in.
All right. LGBTQ plus flash news. The LGBTQ plus generational wealth gap is a serious issue. From our partners at Hotspots Magazine, it's no secret that LGBTQ plus people face a range of financial challenges that heterosexual people simply don't need to contend with. Less discussed are the effects of financial discrimination on building LGBTQ plus generational wealth. In reality, the American dream, buying a home, getting married, having kids, finding a good job, and investing in a 401k is out of reach for many LGBTQ plus people. According to a survey by TD Ameritrade, almost 2/3 of LGBTQ plus millennials say they are unlikely to achieve these goals by age 40, compared to fewer than half of straight millennials. To find out more about this problem in the LGBTQ plus community, pick up the newest issue of Hotspots on stands now.
Well, so much for the alleged disposable income the LGBT community was known to have.
I can relate to this 100%, and I hope that us as queer Americans find our own standard of what the American dream is, not trying to keep up with the straighties.
You know, it's a two-edged sword. The disposable income of the reason advertisers go after the LGBTQ community is because we spend our money so freely. The less known side of the other edge of the sword is that frequently, because we're a service industry economy, predominantly in the community, we don't have the resources to be able to save, and that's what the TD Trade study reveals.
Right. I mean, also, I think, take into consideration, like me as a queer man of color, my family doesn't come from money. There was nothing to hand down. And then me being a queer person, I was put out at 15. So already I had to start back over at nothing. And how many people do we know who have to come through a similar situation, who we're just not afforded that chance to have money handed down to you through your legacy?
LGBTQ plus flash news. Fans love Candyman's refreshing portrayal of a gay couple. Out.com reports that queer audiences heading to theaters this week to catch the much-anticipated Candyman sequel are in for a surprisingly delicious treat. The Nia DaCosta directed and Jordan Peele produced film not only stars out actors Coleman Domingo and Carol Clemens Hopkins, but also prominently includes a gay couple and, spoiler alert, despite this being a horror movie, it doesn't bury its gays. The couple in question is Troy Cartwright, the gay brother of Brianna, played by Tiana Paris, and his partner Grady, played by Nathan Stewart Jarrett and Kyle Kaminsky, respectively. Although Troy and Grady might not technically be main characters, they are in our hearts. They do play a notable role in the action and provide audiences the opportunity to see a loving, authentic depiction of gay love.
I don't mind having a horror movie with eye candy, but queer eye candy, that's my thing.
In teleprompter, it has a mirror in it. So I just look into the mirror and go, Candyman, Candyman.
Oh,
Candy.
not today, not today.
I love horror movies. Candyman was the one that literally terrified me as a child. It was the one that I had nightmares about, but I want to go see it now.
Okay, look into your reverse
Absolutely
mirror
not. No.
and start.
I'm not tempting the devil, not today.
This is for Jasmine. Candyman.
No.
Candyman.
You said it, not me.
It's him. I'm all for more LGBTQ plus characters in horror movies.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Ooh, I know that's right. LGBTQ plus flash news. Pete and Chasten posted the first photo of their babies and shared their names. Aw, babies! What's better than one bundle of joy? Two bundles of joy, of course. Elite Daily reports that in a September 4th post, U.S. Transport Secretary Pete Buttigieg and his husband Chasten were announced the birth of their adopted twins, and the new family is absolutely precious. So get ready for some warm fuzzies, because this first photo of Pete and Chasten, Buttigieg's twins babies, is just so cute. It might just give you baby fever. The babies' names: Penelope Rose and Joseph August Buttigieg.
I'm so happy for them, and they get child rearing just like everyone else does. I'm not so sure that's a great thing.
Ooh.
They get it too.
I'm gonna keep those pictures away from my partner because he has been harassing me, and the answer is absolutely not.
No.
So no baby fever for us.
Daddies being daddies.
Daddies being daddies. Okay.
I love what was just said before me. Daddies being daddies.
Oh my God. All right, so that is today's news for the LGBTQ plus community on the world's first and only daily LGBTQ plus evening news show. Is our community important to you?
Then help us by liking and subscribing. Ring the bell for updates. Share this news with your friends and family.
Post this broadcast in the many groups you are a member of. Tonight's stories about our community deserve the attention of your family and friends.
Queer News Tonight is the only live LGBTQ plus digital television in the world that is out of the closet and into the headlines. We need your support.
I'm Al Ferguson, and if our community is to grow, we must tell our stories and bring them to the attention of the broader world. This is the only place in the world that tells these LGBTQ plus stories in motion and sound. That is the passion of Happening Out Television Network and Queer News Tonight. On behalf of these LGBTQ plus reporters, the anchors of Queer News Tonight, including Jasmine Pryce Lords, Gregg Shapiro, and Kishi Chad, we will see you daily at 8 p.m.
Later.
Bye.
LGBTQ plus news is vital for our community and for the broader world as a whole. We have enough enemies at Fox News. Tucker, Sean, and Laura are loud. We need passionate allies. Happening Out Television Network, Queer News Tonight, and It's Happening Out are literally out of the closet and into the headlines. Our community needs your support. Like this broadcast and subscribe now to ensure the growth